Hi guys, Eva here. Hope you are all having a wonderful day. We are going to get started in a few minutes where I'm going to be talking all about early rising and what causes it and how you can avoid it. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to log on. Just give me a quick second while I share this feed in from our Facebook page to the Facebook group so that um, my group members can also listen in. So hold on, just give me a quick second. Hope you guys are all having a wonderful day and that you're enjoying this beautiful spring weather that we're finally getting right now. All right, here we are. Let me just share this in um, to the Facebook group. I'm going to give you guys another couple of minutes to log on. If any of you can also just confirm that the volume is okay, that you can hear me all right. Again, I prefer talking to people than talking to my window in front of me. It's way more enjoyable. So just let me know if you can hear, if the volume is okay, and then I will be sure to get started within the next minute or so. All right. Volume looks good. Thanks, Lou. Fantastic. All right. There we are. Okay. So, guys, I am so excited about this topic because it really is one of the most common sleep problems that families with babies and young children are challenged by. It's a very popular topic. It's a very common topic because it's a very it's an easy problem for a baby or a child to develop. It's one of those problems where the second that oftentimes something goes wrong with the child's sleep patterns or sleep habits, or something's a little bit off with their schedule, or something's a little bit off with their routine, early rising very often is the first problem to emerge, is the first, I guess, side effect of the overall problem to emerge. And so as a result, it's a really common problem for young parents to be stuck waking up at the crack of dawn with their baby or young child. But the good news, this is very fickle. And so I am so looking forward to really delving into what causes early rising and how we can ultimately solve it. There are many culprits of early rising, but I really wanted to do my best to focus on the most common three causes of early rising, because I do find that those are by far the most common culprits. Volume looks fine. Thanks, Kira. All right. It looks like we are good to go. So what I'm hoping for all of you listening in is that by the end of this webinar, you'll have a better understanding as to the role of sleep science, the role of routines, the role of independent sleep skills, and how that can all play into establishing healthy sleep habits overall, and ultimately allow you to really fix your little one's sleep problems, or at least get you off to the right path and give you a greater understanding as to why you might still be stuck waking up at the crack of dawn every single day. So, or at least a few days a week for that matter. Even one day a week is just way too torturous for me. So, before I delve into, I guess, the three most common culprits of early rising, I'm just going to tell you all a little bit about myself, because I just realized once again, I don't think I introduced myself. So I'm Eva Klein. I'm the owner and founder of My Sleeping Baby. And I got into this business a number of years ago, but 4.5 years ago, when my younger daughter was a baby. You see, my story, I know probably a lot of you can relate to. My older daughter was born a fantastic sleeper. I never had to read anything. I never needed to learn anything about sleep. She just naturally, for the most part, slept beautifully. As a newborn, all she would, she was waking up and eating, but she would just go right back to sleep. It was never a problem. It was never a challenge getting her to sleep and getting her back to sleep to begin with, which looking back obviously tells me I had a natural sleeper on my hands. But with my younger one, I guess, you can't hit the jackpot twice, right? She was not a naturally gifted sleeper. Sleep was not a skill that came nearly as naturally as it did to her older sister. And she was one of those babies that really needed all the right tools and all the right foundations to be properly and perfectly in place in order for her to be able to sleep well. And I'll tell you that we battled with early rising for a while with her. I mean, oh my gosh, starting my day at 5 a.m. or my husband starting his day at 5 a.m. because he'd let me sleep in until 7 was a very common occurrence in our home for a little while until we really managed to perfect things. So I know firsthand how torturous it can be to get woken up at the crack of dawn day after day after day. And here's the reality is that chances are if your little one's waking up at 5 a.m. and isn't getting a full night's sleep, he's probably also waking up exhausted. So the good news is that your entire family ecosystem can probably benefit, and the kids can benefit from these changes that you can make just as much as you benefit from. So that's the good news. So in a nutshell, how I got into this business, as I said, was because of my younger daughter. She inspired me because I don't function well on no sleep. I am a zombie. Everybody needs sleep, don't get me wrong, but I think everybody's got different breaking points, and my breaking point on no sleep is pretty low. I can't function for very long with broken, interrupted sleep over a longer period of time. It really gets to me. And so that's why sleep really became such a huge priority in our family, because we all really needed it to be able to function. So, because I will say I'm a lawyer by training. I got into this when I was on maternity leave with my second daughter. It's a true story. I graduated from Western in London, Ontario in 2011, and I was working for a couple of years. And so when I launched my business, it was really just meant to be a side business because it was something that I was so passionate about, having gone through the struggles of being sleep deprived myself, that I figured, you know what, let this be something that I'm really passionate about, and we'll see where it goes. And it's grown from there, and it's been my full-time thing for a few years now. So and I've worked with over 1,000 families to date until now, including my one-on-one consultations and group workshops. And so again, getting back to the topic, early rising is a very common theme, and I would say well over half of the families that I have worked with. Either early rising is an isolated problem by itself, or it's a problem that's part of a bigger picture where we're also seeing night wakings and short naps and difficulty falling asleep. Either way, it's torturous, and we're going to try and get, and I'm going to be trying to give you as much insight into it as possible. But it's, as I said, it's such a popular topic because it can appear in either one of those two circumstances. So now let's kind of delve in and get started. So let's first and foremost define what exactly early rising is and what it isn't. So early rising, by sheer definition, is when you have a baby or a young child that's either waking up before 6 a.m., or he's waking up well before he has he's waking up and he hasn't slept for close to 11 hours, whichever one is later. So for example, if you have a little one who's going to bed at 8 o'clock every night and waking up at 6 a.m. for the day, chances are that's not enough nighttime sleep. Usually we're aiming for at least 11 hours of nighttime sleep. And then of course it goes without saying that if your little one is waking up before the hours of 6 a.m., that is by sheer definition an early rising problem. What is not an early rising problem is when your little one is going to bed at 7:30 and waking up at 6:30. That's a fantastic sleeper. I get that 6:30 is probably much earlier than you're used to waking up, maybe before your baby was born. However, for our purposes, a 6:30 wake up with at least 11 hours of nighttime sleep, and and the baby's either sleeping through or only waking up once or twice each, depending on how old the baby is, that's considered fantastic sleep for our purposes. So I know sometimes people will come to me and say, hey, listen, my little one's up at 6:30. My older one used to would sleep in until 8. How do I get my baby sleeping in until 8? That's not always possible because, as I said, your baby or little one is not breaking any rules by waking up for 6:30 a.m. on the dot, as long as he's getting enough consolidated nighttime sleep. So that's what the sheer definition of an early rising problem is. And the reason why early rising is such a common problem, both for babies who are sleep trained and for babies who are not sleep trained, is because between the hours of 4 and 6 a.m., there is very little sleep pressure. So what do I mean? There's a term called homeostatic sleep pressure, which basically it's this external sleep pressure that helps us fall asleep and stay asleep when biologically appropriate. And so that's why our bodies are programmed to fall asleep at specific times. So, an adult is typically programmed to fall asleep between the hours of 10 and 11 o'clock. We need approximately 8 hours of nighttime sleep. And so with your baby or your child, on the other hand, depending on what their schedule is going to look like, their bodies are going to also be programmed to fall asleep at, certain times every single night. In the first few hours of the night, sleep pressure is very, very deep. That's when we're in what's called non-REM sleep, which is that very deep sleep, and it's very difficult to get awoken. And then as the night goes on, we begin transitioning to lighter and lighter sleep. And so the reason why early rising in particular is a very common problem is because if your little one doesn't know how to fall asleep on his own, or there is something with regards to his sleep habits or his schedule or his routine, and we'll delve into all this momentarily, then it's so easy to wake up at the crack of dawn because you're in a very light sleep. Sleep pressure is very weak, and it's very difficult to fall back asleep. I mean, I even know when my husband, I have no problem falling back asleep at 5 a.m. I'm a good sleeper in that sense. But if my husband happens to get woken up by a snowplow or someone starting their car or some kind of loud background noise, chances are he's not falling back asleep. And a lot of kids and babies are like that too. And the reason why this can be so torturous for adults to be beginning their day so early is because that research actually shows that deeper sleep and lighter sleep play different roles in terms of our body's needs. So the deeper non-REM sleep that our bodies get is typically, it's known to be responsible for any kind of physical repairs that your body might need. So, if you have a bruise, a scratch, I mean, really anything for that matter. That's when your body physically repairs whatever it needs to repair. Come the early hours of the morning and you're in REM sleep, you know what that's responsible for? Emotional regulation, memory. And so if you're finding that you got woken up at the crack of dawn and you are much crankier than usual and you are much more forgetful than usual, that's because you didn't get enough REM sleep because your cute little one woke you up too early. So that's why early rising can be really, really challenging for families because it sucks to go through your day being so cranky. So what I'm going to be talking now about what I find to be the 3 most common culprits of early rising and ultimately what you can do about it. Now, I will tell you that these 3 things I'm about to discuss can cause many other sleep problems as well, but they are especially responsible. They are definitely responsible for causing early rising problems also. So you'll see that early rising is very often part of a bigger sleep challenge. So the first and most common culprit of early rising is overtiredness. Now, I know that this often goes against common sense. You know, common sense will dictate, oh, if your baby doesn't sleep well during the day, or you keep your baby up really, really late, you know, you push their bedtime really, really late, or you cut back on their naps so they're barely napping at all, or you keep them up for a really long time, they'll be extra tired, and then they'll sleep better at night and they'll sleep longer. When really that is the complete opposite. Now, apparently, according to my mom, I was a chronic early riser as a baby for years. You want to know why? My bedtime was 9 o'clock. And my mom, if she had known 30 something years ago that my bedtime was too late, that I probably needed to go down for bed around 7, and that would have pushed my morning wake time later, she would have put me to bed earlier. But she was afraid that if she puts me to bed earlier, then I'd wake up around 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. for the day instead of 5. So the reason why early rising can often be caused by overtiredness is because overtiredness, it causes your body to become physically stressed, in that it's basically allows your nervous system to secrete a hormone called cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And when you have stress hormones in your body, it causes your body to become a little bit more tense. It makes it much more challenging for your little one to settle. And then in those specific early hours of the morning, when you're already in a very, very light sleep, it is so easy for your little one to get woken up because his body isn't as relaxed as it could be. And so whenever anyone reaches out to me, whether it's in my one-on-one support options or in the Sleep Bible program, the very first thing I always want to know is, what is your baby's schedule? What is your toddler's schedule? And I will say that the vast majority of the time, overtiredness is at least somewhat to blame. So what is overtiredness? Overtiredness is when the baby isn't getting enough sleep over a 24-hour period. And that can be caused by a number of factors. So that can be caused by a baby who is not napping enough during the day. So their total amount of daytime sleep is just not ample. That can cause your baby to wake up at 5 a.m. for the day. If the quality of sleep that your baby is getting is not ample. So the quality of sleep that your baby over the age of 6 months, for that matter, gets in a crib is far superior to the quality of sleep that your baby will get in a stroller or in the car or on the go. And so the quality of sleep also really, really matters here. And so if your baby isn't getting good quality sleep and he's not waking up nearly as rested, that can cause him to wake up at the crack of dawn. If your little one is awake for big, humongous chunks of time throughout the day that are just too long, that are not age appropriate, then that can cause, first of all, it can cause him to not nap well, which can then cause him to wake up in the early hours of the morning because he's overtired. Even if he does give you a good nap, he can still become overtired because the wake windows themselves are too big. So either way, you can easily be looking at an early rising problem if the wake windows are too big. And another very common situation I see is a baby that has a really good schedule, wakes up, naps when he needs to, naps for a really nice chunk of time, and then everything is great and fantastic and wonderful, and then bedtime just ends up being far too late. And unfortunately, even though the naps were perfect and the wake windows were perfect and everything was perfect up until bedtime, a bedtime that is too late in and of itself can cause an early rising problem. So if any of this is potentially ringing true to you, the very first thing I would tell you to look at is take a good hard look at what your little one's typical daytime schedule or routine is looking like. How long is your little one typically awake for between sleeps throughout the day? How long is your little one typically awake for before bedtime? How much daytime sleep is your little one typically getting? And how much does your little one really need in terms of daytime sleep? Just to kind of give you an idea, the average 6-month-old typically needs somewhere between 3.5 to 4 hours worth of daytime sleep. on a daily basis. That is a lot of daytime sleep that a 6-month-old usually needs. A 9-month-old may need about 3 hours. A 1-year-old may need about 2.5 hours. By the time they're 1.5, they still need about 2.5 hours. Babies need quite a bit of daytime sleep, and if they don't get it, then it can take a toll on their nighttime sleep as a whole. But because early rising is such an easy problem to emerge because of the lack of sleep pressure, then it's a very, very common side effect, I would say, of not napping well during the day, of being overtired and not getting enough sleep over a 24-hour period. So that is, I would say, the gold medal winner of the most common culprits of early rising. Now, the second most common culprit of early rising is if there is too much light in the room. Now, this is extremely appropriate given the time of year. So thank God we're finally getting lots and lots of natural sunlight because it is spring. So I'm from Toronto, born and raised here, still live in Toronto, where in the wintertime and up until about mid-April, it was on and off a bit of an Arctic wasteland around here. Usually mid-April, we begin to see the sun emerge, but then we had this weird ice storm out of absolutely nowhere. So it pretty much was an Arctic wasteland until mid to even end of April. And it was a bit of a disaster because all the snow plows, the snow plow employees were gone. Their contracts expired at the end of March. It was a disaster. But as a result of being in an Arctic wasteland, it means that we're not getting in any natural sunlight at 5 or 5:30 in the morning. Now that it is May and it is springtime and the sun is setting much later and rising much earlier, early rising often becomes a very common problem at this time of year, because if you don't have heavy duty blackout blinds in your little one's room, and the sun is beaming into your little one's room at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, it can wake them up. And as I said, once they're up at 5 or 5:30, there is very little sleep pressure, and it's going to be very challenging, if not impossible, for them to actually go back to sleep. So if you don't already have heavy duty blackout blinds, get those up. Like today, literally run to Home Depot right now or after the webinar and get blackout blinds up as soon as physically possible if this is ringing true to you at all. Because, and I will tell you, oftentimes one layer of blackout blinds is not enough. Usually we need to combine 2 blackout products together. So a blackout curtain with a blackout blind, a roller blind of some kind underneath, because one blackout curtain might make the room darker, might make the room, kind of dark, and it may be good enough for some, but if you're battling early rising on a daily basis, then you don't want to experiment and see through trial and error how dark your little one needs his room to be. Just go all out, get 2 layers of blackout blinds up, so that we can rule too much light out of the equation, where you just don't need to worry about there being too much light in terms of causing an early rising problem. The basic science behind this is that if there is too much light, then what that does is it suppresses your production of melatonin, which is that hormone that makes you sleepy, and it tells your body that it's time to wake up. And so I know many adults that have heavy duty blackout blinds in their rooms, because even as adults, their bodies are still fairly sensitive, and they easily get woken up by too much natural light coming into the room. And even though they want to go back to sleep, because for crying out loud, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, they can't, because getting exposed to that light has told their body, good morning, time to wake up. For those of you who are pregnant and are waking up multiple times a night to go to the bathroom, the exact same problem can emerge if you are going to the bathroom and flicking on the light. Because even though you know that it's 3 a.m. and that you need to go right back to sleep, by flicking on the light, it can tell your body, good morning. You're going to be up for the next 1 to 2 hours. So the moral of the story is don't turn on the light, or, use a really small night light if you need to be able to see around and not trip over your own feet, because the end result of exposing yourself to any amount of light when it is nighttime is that your body can begin playing tricks on you and make it much, much harder to fall back asleep and stay asleep. So that is the basic science there. So for those of you who are going, yeah, I don't know if, little Johnny's room is dark enough. It's kind of dark, but there's definitely light coming in. And for sure during the daytime, it's definitely lighter than it used to be. Just literally make a beeline for a Home Depot right now. It doesn't need to be Home Depot, Walmart, Costco, IKEA. It's all good. They all have stuff for you. Blackout blinds and blackout curtains so that you will have your bases covered. Now, the third most common culprit of early rising, so this is the bronze medal winner, though I would say that I think number 1, number 2, and number 3 probably deserve to be tied here, is weak self-soothing skills. So what does this mean? Self-soothing skills refer to a baby or a child's ability to fall asleep unassisted. So what this means is, what this in essence looks like, is you being able to put your baby down in her crib, or tuck your toddler in, or tuck your preschooler in. After doing the bedtime routine, say goodnight, leave the room, and have them fall asleep completely on their own. And ultimately be able to do this if they wake up at night. Just be able to connect the sleep cycles and put themselves back to sleep on their own. If your little one does not know how to do this, or if your little one needs some help falling asleep, so maybe you rock her until she's drowsy, or maybe you feed her until she's a little bit drowsy, or maybe you rub her back for 5 minutes to kind of help her get into that sleepy state, or maybe you get into your preschooler's bed and you lie next to her until she falls asleep, or until she gets really sleepy. All of these scenarios can directly cause your little one to wake up at the crack of dawn. It can also cause, multiple night wakings and short naps, but it is a very well-known culprit of early rising because, as I've said, there's very little sleep pressure at that time of night. And so because there is no external sleep pressure helping your little one stay asleep, that means that you're going to have a few different scenarios. So scenario number 1 is that your little one is going to wake up and is going to need help falling back to sleep because your little one's sleep skills are not strong enough to stay asleep without that added sleep pressure. And so you're going to get woken up and you're going to get called on to help him fall back asleep. Scenario number 2 is that even with your help, it won't be strong enough to get him back to sleep because he's now wide awake. It's 5 a.m. He's almost done sleeping for the night. Not quite, but almost. He thinks he's well rested. He'd rather get up and play because your little ones don't yet realize how awesome sleep is. They won't realize how awesome sleep is for a while. And so you're stuck starting your day at 5 o'clock in the morning to begin with. And then, scenario number 3 is you leave him to fall back asleep because that's what the books all say, right? And then day after day after day and week after week after week, he is just not going back to sleep. And you see how your little one falls asleep at bedtime initially is specifically what sets the tone for the rest of the night. And so if you are battling an early rising problem and your little one is not falling asleep 100% on his own, in other words, you are not able at this point to be able to put him down in his crib or in his bed, say goodnight, and leave the room, then that is definitely something that you want to be tackling as as much as you can, because that is, as I said, for this exact reason, going to cause an early rising problem. There's no point in leaving your little one until the desired time of 6 or 6:30 or 7 a.m. if his sleep skills are not a 10 out of 10. If he needs even a little bit of help falling asleep, even if she needs to get a little bit drowsy, she nurses until she's, a little bit sleepy, but not really. And then you put her down and she just rolls over, does the rest of the work on her own. It's great. It's better than if she was conking out while nursing, but it's still, for our purposes, problematic because it can cause early rising. And so if any of this is ringing true to you, then in addition to perfecting your little one's naps and daytime schedule, an overall 24-hour schedule, in addition to getting those heavy duty blackout blinds. And by the way, if you don't have time to go to Home Depot, garbage bags, cardboard, that'll all do the trick in the meantime. You definitely also want to come up with a plan that is going to teach your little one how to fall asleep and how to fall back asleep. Because if your little one needs help falling asleep at bedtime, and if she needs help falling back to sleep also at various points in the night, then an early rising problem is a very natural consequence of the bigger picture here. So it doesn't mean that you need to be resorting to cry it out. I just want to, really confirm this and clarify this, because a lot of people think that the solution just needs to involve plunking your little one in her crib, saying goodnight, leaving the room, and not going back in. And that's not the only option. There are many other approaches that you can take in the middle, in between cry it out and wait it out, that can get you to the exact same endpoint, that can fit within your comfort zone. Some might take a little bit longer than others, but I would much rather you pick an approach that may take a little bit longer, but you feel comfortable with and you'll actually stick to, as opposed to doing something that is completely outside of your comfort zone that you're just not comfortable with, and then you end up being inconsistent and not sticking to it, and then you don't get yourself anywhere. There's no point in putting yourself in that kind of situation. Now, I want to provide you guys with a bonus secret, a bonus fourth common culprit of early rising. Because some of you, I think most of you listening, are probably nodding your head to at least one of those three, going, yep, my kid falls under the first category or the second category or the third category or a combination or all three. There's probably a minority of you going, I don't understand, Eva. My kid is fully sleep trained. I sleep trained him when he was 6 months. He falls asleep completely on his own. He takes great naps during the day. His room is like a bat cave. It's like a 9 out of 10 in terms of darkness. And yet he is still waking up at the crack of dawn. What the heck is going on? So don't get confused here, people. But the fourth bonus reason that I want to provide you guys in terms of why your little one might waking up way too early is that there may actually be too much daytime sleep happening. A number of you are going, what the heck? I don't understand. Wasn't the number one culprit of early rising overtiredness? Yes. So let me explain. There is such thing as too much of a good thing. So yes, we don't want, if your 7-month-old is sleeping twice a day for 40 minutes, that is overtiredness. That's not enough daytime sleep, and it's very natural to end up getting an early rising problem. However, if your 7-month-old is napping 3 times a day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and then an hour before bedtime, it's actually too much of a good thing. And you see, there's only so much sleep that your little one of any age can give you over a 24-hour period, right? We all max out. There's only so much sleep that we can be giving you. And so if you're using the 7-month-old as an example, if your 7-month-old is sleeping a total of 5 hours during the day, which is probably too much, then it means that there's a good chance his night is going to get shortened. he's just not going to be able to sleep as much at nighttime as he could be, because he slept too much during the day and there's only so much sleep that he can give you. And so in this kind of situation, you would ultimately want to, in essence, rob Peter to pay Paul. So cut back on those naps, maybe allow your 7-month-old to nap an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the afternoon, and then a 45-minute cat nap, which in essence just cuts back on about 45 minutes worth of daytime sleep that we would then hopefully cut and paste into the nighttime. So I really wanted to touch upon this because it's a pretty common problem. Again, I find that the majority of families reaching out to me have a baby that is overtired, and or the room is too light, and or the baby doesn't know how to fall asleep by herself. But I will say often enough, I do find that with babies that are perfectly sleep trained, that have great sleep environments, that there is just too much daytime sleep happening. And so that in that kind of situation, it would mean waking your baby up a little bit earlier, cutting back on the amount of daytime sleep that she's getting so that we can lengthen her night. So this kind of goes back to my original point, where it's really, really important for you to really understand how much sleep your baby or your toddler needs at a certain age. By the way, this equally applies to preschoolers who are maybe still napping or are napping for a really long time, and they don't need as much sleep as they needed when they were younger. And so as a result, they're waking up at the crack of dawn because they're just done sleeping. So this could also be a reflection of a 3-year-old who's ready to drop his nap completely, or a toddler or a preschooler who no longer needs a 2 to 2.5 hour long nap. Maybe we need to be cutting it back a little bit earlier. But I think the big takeaway point here is to really understand how much sleep your little one needs, what the ranges are, what are considered to be age appropriate sleep ranges for, babies and kids of all ages, and specifically for a baby or a child in his or her specific range, so that you've got the big picture here, and that you can see kind of through trial and error, like through process of elimination, okay, is this a problem? Is my little one sleeping too much? Is my little one not sleeping enough? I'm not quite sure. Let me go and take a look. So great info. Thanks, Connie. I'm glad that you're enjoying. I agree. I think this is, as I've said, because early rising is such a common problem, I was really, really excited to kind of delve into this in much more detail, so that those of you watching can really walk away with a much more detailed understanding as to what is often causing an early rising problem. Because I think that there's a myth or a misunderstanding around early rising, that some kids just wake up at 5 a.m. and they're just programmed to wake at 5 a.m. and there is just nothing that you can do about it. And in my experience, the vast majority of the time, that is not the case. There is an underlying root to the problem, or underlying roots to the problem, that when addressed properly and consistently and correctly, can definitely fix the problem and begin getting you a waking of at least in the 6s, which, as I said, is completely legal for our purposes. So as I mentioned, in the email and in my posts, that I would be talking all about my Sleep Bible program, which actually really gives you all of this exact specific information and guidance and support that you need to really get this problem figured out. So if you're feeling like ramped up and ready to go, that you are ready to get your little one on a good schedule, and you are ready to sleep train your little one and perfect your little one's sleep environments and routines and daytime nutrition, so that you can stop waking up at night and stop waking up at the crack of dawn, then I would encourage you to give my program a try. I've got a $1 trial happening in honor of Mother's Day, which I guess is a belated Mother's Day present to you guys. I'm continuing it until 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight, which is in just a few hours. The coupon is Amazing Moms. So you get to try the program for $1 and you get access to it for 5 days. And there is no pressure to continue on if the program is not for you. You just log into your account and you cancel. And then, but of course, if you want to stick around, then you can stick around for as long as you'd like. It's normally $39 a month. But again, you guys get to give the program a try for $1, which is going to provide you with literally everything that you need to know to fix your little one's sleep problems. And what I love about the program so much is that you're not just getting access to my extensive library of training videos, which by the way are very detailed. It took me 1.5 years to put this all together, so it's very, very detailed, but you still get me along the way. So there is a members only Facebook group where everyone is members of the program are posting very detailed questions about their little one's progress, and they're in the thick of implementing their sleep plans. They're getting detailed responses from me every single day. They're getting, other responses from other moms for support who may be going through the exact same process. There are group calls that we do through Facebook Live every other week where I answer people's questions in a lot of detail. And as a fun bonus, I've been bringing on some experts every month on topics that don't relate to sleep, but relate to other aspects of motherhood that we all want to learn more about, just to make it more fun and to add extra value. So that's kind of how the program works in a nutshell. So you're not just getting a bunch of videos and then being told, good luck, have fun, go watch them, and I hope for the best. You still get access to me and a really fantastic community every step along the way. Now, I know that some of you have just posted some questions. So, honey, your question is, 10-month-old kiddo started waking up an hour earlier, so only 11 hours of sleep, but only started when he was consistently taking 2 1.5-hour naps. Was looking forward to listening to this. Yeah, so you know what? I would tell you, honey, that if your little guy is sleeping 11 hours straight at night and napping an hour and a half 2 times a day, that's fantastic. That is amazing. So as long as his schedule isn't too early and he is sleeping in until at least the 6s, then you're doing great, and I would give your little guy an A+ in the sleep department, because that's really, really fantastic. Leora, you were saying if my son doesn't nap, he wakes up earlier the next day. So that would tell me that your little one still needs a nap, and if he doesn't get a nap, then he becomes overtired. So I would put that into, I guess, the very first. Remember how I was saying how overtiredness is the most common culprit of early rising? Your little guy, I don't know how old he is, but if he clearly still needs his nap, because he appears to sleep better with it than he does without it. So that definitely makes sense. Alice's question is, hold on here, how do we reset their sleep in order to get rid of overtiredness? I suspect my 1-year-old's problem is a result of overtiredness, rising early and then the odd short nap. Naps 1 and 2 happen early, 8:30 and 12:30, and then his wake windows get too long before bedtime and the cycle repeats. So it sounds like it definitely sounds like, Alice, that you would need to kind of do a little bit of schedule shifting. So it's a vicious cycle that you're in, where he's napping 8:30 and then 12:30. There's a few different things going on here. So the fact that his naps are short is for sure causing an early rising problem. So, you'd want to definitely get a handle on that and work on lengthening them. But then you hit the nail on the head. The other problem is that everything is happening too early. So you'd probably want to be simultaneously strengthening his sleep skills so that you can get him sleeping better. Again, look at his sleep environment. Make sure the room is really, really dark. And then again, ultimately work on gradually shifting everything a little bit later, so that if your little one is 1, an example of a really good schedule would be if he's napping from, let's say, 9:30 till 10:30, and then napping again from, let's say, 2 to 3:30, so that you can safely get yourself a bedtime of around 7. And then if he sleeps 11 hours around the clock, that's a morning wake time of at least 6. So that's would be my the biggest piece of advice. And Diana, you want to know what are the appropriate wake times and sleep times for a 9-month-old? On average, most 9-month-olds need about 11 hours of nighttime sleep and about 3 hours worth of naps. So basically what Honey's baby is doing is 10 months. I would say is about the average for about a 9-month-old. Wake windows at this age usually range between 3 to 3.5 hours, usually. Though they may be a smidgen smaller or a smidgen bigger. Some 9-month-olds are still napping 3 times a day. Not usually, but sometimes they are. And so the wake windows may be a little bit shorter. But on average, most of them are napping twice a day, an hour and a half apiece, with wake windows that range between 3 to 3.5 hours. Leora, you were saying he's 2.5 and he does nap. Yeah, most 2.5-year-olds still need to nap. You know, maybe it might be a matter of cutting back on the duration of the nap, but I would say that what you're describing is very, very normal for a 2.5-year-old. If he doesn't nap, then he becomes overtired and then wakes up earlier the next day. So just like most 2.5-year-olds, he still needs his daytime sleep. Okay, so Stephanie, your question is it possible that a 1.5 hour nap is too long for an almost 3-year-old? Ever since I allowed him to nap 1.5 hours, he wakes up at 5 a.m. every single day. Yes, totally. 1,000%, hands down. It may very well be a matter of robbing Peter to pay Paul here, Stephanie. So, you know, I would, if everything else is perfect and you're kind of in that last category of parents who have a perfectly sleep trained little one and you know, naps are good and sleep environment's good and everything is fantastic, then yeah, you may just want to cut back on your little one's sleep. All right, guys, these were all really fantastic questions. Again, if you're interested in giving the Sleep Bible a try, which is really going to give you very detailed step-by-step instructions and follow-up support from me along the way, definitely go check it out. So the website is mysleepingbaby.com/sleep-bible, or you just go to my website, mysleepingbaby.com, click on the Sleep Bible link. You've got the coupon code there, Amazing Moms, one word, lowercase, and it gets you access to everything that you need so that you can get your little one sleeping, get yourself sleeping, get some sanity back in your life, have enough energy to be able to go to the gym, have enough energy to be able to be patient with your little ones, to wake up with a smile on your face, enjoy motherhood or parenthood as much as you can. Go on a date with your spouse if you've been too tired to go on a date with your spouse for the last few months or years, depending on how sleep deprived everybody is. And I can't think of anything that's more worthwhile than that. So for those of you who had a really exhausting Mother's Day because your little one is still not sleeping well, consider this to be a belated Mother's Day treat to you. And as I said, there's no pressure to stick around. If the program isn't for you, you can just cancel before the 5-day trial period is up, and you don't need to be in the program anymore, and it'll just cost you the $1. That's it. Amazing. So I hope that this was helpful. If any of you guys have any additional follow-up questions, you can just post them in the thread below, and I will do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. Amazing. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.